to Unspoken Conversations. Your words have power. Together, we will have a multi-generational conversation on topics that are considered taboo, risky, controversial, but most of all, thought-provoking. All right. Good evening, everyone. I see I have a message here that there is a problem on Facebook. We're having trouble streaming to Facebook. Or just remove the destination from the stream, then re-add it. Okay. Brandon, are you able to go in and re-add Facebook to the stream? As co-host, you should have the same some of the same access.
So add destination, Facebook. Hey.
All right. Well, while Brandon is getting that together, I do see that we do have one viewer so far. So viewer, thank you so much for joining us. There is a phone number that I'm going to show on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to, you can call in if you want to speak to the panel live on the air. If not, feel free to just post comments, questions concerning in the comments section. Everyone, the full panel can see your comment. And yeah. So I see we have good evening, Shanita. And we have Dave. Thank you so much for joining us. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm so excited because I have two amazing people joining us this evening to engage in this conversation. Let me first say, the goal is not to create controversy. So I'm just going to put that out there. The goal is not to create controversy, but we want to have a productive, intelligent conversation about gentrification and how it impacts our communities, and make sure that we have a proper understanding of what it is, and if anything, what can be done. Does it just require us having further conversations, or are there some actionables that we can do? So with that being said, I want to first introduce Lakeisha Stevenson. And Lakeisha, if you could just give everybody a little bit of background about what you do and why you're here with us tonight, besides the fact that I asked you.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I am Lakeisha Stevenson, and I think the role that I play as a realtor, as a broker owner in charge of a firm, kind of gives me this seat. So that's my life. I've been licensed since, I can't keep up with the years now, I just say since 92. Been actively selling for 26 years. I kind of keep up with it when the middle one has a birthday, because I came back into business when I had a 2-year-old and I was pregnant, almost about to have another baby. Okay. And I was compelled to come back into this wonderful world of real estate. So real estate is who I am. It's what I do. I manage a firm. We do full service property management, as well as we have a real estate sales team. We also do investments, as well as we founded a house measurement business during COVID. So we do all things real estate. On top of that, I am a real estate instructor. So when I say real estate is my life, real estate is my life.
Well, I got a quick question. What is house measurement?
For every home that is listed for sale, the real estate commission says that if you're going to report square footage, that it has to be accurate. Well,
Okay.
the only way to confirm that it is accurate is that it is professionally measured, or us as brokers have the skill and training to measure it ourselves.
I know somebody who's having a current issue with that. Well, had. uh, everybody knows. I mean,
You know what? That's a material fact when it comes to, is it reported right? Now, it's not a material fact that we report it, but if we report it, it's gotta be accurate. So yeah, that's one of the things. My husband Jeff founded that during COVID,
Okay.
and yeah, that's his work. He's licensed as well. I am married for 30 years. We celebrated 30
congratulations.
this
Good
past
for
July.
you. Good for you,
So I
Keisha.
like to tell people, y'all give Jeff a hand for just putting up with me for 30 years.
Aw.
We
The
have
love is
three-
easy to put up with.
Yeah, we have 3 beautiful daughters and we have 2 granddaughters. So he is a wonderful girl dad and girl granddad at this rate. No boys yet. No boys yet.
Oh boy, but when that boy comes, he gonna be a mess, ain't he?
I think he is. I think he is. I think he is.
All right. Well, next we have he happens to be my first cousin. Love
There
him
we
to
go.
death, and he is married to a beautiful wife. Her name is Dana, and they are a power couple. So you make sure that you give her a shout out as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But please introduce yourself, Mr. Brian Campbell.
Thank you. Tisha, as my cousin, I'm honored. Thank you very much for giving me the platform to speak, give my truth on the subject. So, yes, everybody, my name is Brian Campbell. And as not as long as Keisha, but I am also in the real estate game. I'm on the lending side. So, as a lending professional, as a mortgage lender, my job is to help individuals, families to purchase homes. And so I've been in that space for almost 22 years. So I've seen my fair share of market shifts, but the ability and the knowledge, the know-how of me giving back to the community, especially my people with home ownership, and we know that that's the cornerstone of wealth generation. That gives me, somebody that's been in this game this long, honor, right?
Yes.
To keep doing that, year in and year out. But husband, father, as you said, somebody that is very, very motivated to help people. And so this platform and us giving, our piece of knowledge, right, on this subject matter and bringing the conversation forward, I feel like fits into the wheelhouse of me. That's why I'm so passionate to now be a part of something like this.
You know what? After hearing both of y'all bio, I feel like I need to update and reword mine a little bit of something.
Oh, big.
Hey, man, look, y'all
Hey, we just having a conversation. We ain't even got started yet.
Right.
You know,
Intro.
Right?
It's the bio for me, man. I love it. No, I love it. I love it.
Hey,
Look, it's exciting. It's exciting to see Black people doing big things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, look, in honor of Black History Month, I thought it important to cover some things that impact our community on a very grand scale, and take this time to, like I said, educate each other about these issues that happen in our community. Kind of like I want to give a glimpse as to somewhat of a history. So this is not going to be a full-fledged history lesson, but it'll be a little difficult to talk about what's happening right now if you don't actually know how it all started. So with that being said, your girl took some time out to create a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not the PowerPoint
Salute.
queen.
Salute.
I am not the PowerPoint queen, but I like for things to happen decent and in order, and I like for things to flow. And because it's real easy when you're doing these podcasts to get off in some tangents. And so I want to make sure that we stay on point, stay on task, and that we cover all the areas that we need to cover. So, with that being said, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Give me a
ma'am.
thumbs up. So, again, our conversation is gentrification. Is it another layer of systemic racism? And just really quick, I'm saying yes, it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
We all
Yes.
are in agreement.
We we are aligned.
thanks. So we look across the house, we all on one accord.
Yes.
So I'm going to start off with an introduction about gentrification and how it is defined according to Merriam-Webster. It says it's a process in which a poor area, as of a city, experiences an influx of middle class or wealthy people who renovate and rebuild homes and businesses, and which often results in an increase in property values and a displacement of earlier, usually poor residents. Now, yeah, I have to say I had a bit of an issue with that description. It was the part about the influx of middle class or wealthy people, um, because a lot of the areas that where, let's say, um, uh, American Indians, blacks, some Hispanics, those were all areas that they didn't even want to begin with.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And we were people were placed into these areas, and you know what how the saying says, you gave us lemons and so we made lemonade.
Yes.
And then when they saw what could be done with this land, then they wanted to come back and take it.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's I digress. I was here. I had a moment. Also I looked under so Merriam-Webster is doing big things on the internet. I haven't visited, but it gives you some articles. Uh, so another piece that I came across, it was actually an article, and it was something that Spike Lee had said, but it said gentrification means the process of renewal and rebuilding accompanying the influx of middle class or affluent people into deteriorating areas that often displaces poor residents. It derives from gentry, which means aristocracy, and ultimately from the old French word for noble or highborn. So, my panel, as y'all read that second um, description, definition, um, what does it say to you?
I mean, for me, all right. So we're talking about an area that others, and it doesn't matter skin tone, feels like it's an area that may be the bad side of a town, a city,
Mhm.
right? It may be there is boarded windows. There's homes that have deferred maintenance. There could be a high crime area.
Mhm.
And so to me, this definition is saying this area now is going to change. And now we're going to have this influx of people that are now going to bring in resources to now change the makeup of the property
Mhm.
in the area. That's what that says to me. And it's changing it to say now it's going from bad to good. We're going from dark to white.
Mhm. So, I think what so the name of this podcast is Unspoken Conversation, Your Words Have Power. So, of course, we didn't come up with this definition. It's the definition in itself, how it states. So, I purposely selected this because it gave a breakdown of what gentrification meant. And so, gentry meaning aristocracy. So, the class, the aristocratic class, that was the upper class, because that they were considered to be the upper class. Then in the old French word, it also stands for noble or highborn. But we, people of color, didn't come up with this definition.
Mm-mm.
And so when one let's just say it's our younger children, and they go to look up the definition of gentrification, and they read this particular definition. Can y'all see how it impacts the mindset of the people who are reading it, the people who are attempting to understand what gentrification means, as if to say it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, it makes me feel as if, well, to make I mean, right then, it made me feel as if, oh, I'm trash, and I'm not going to be able to benefit from these resources that are put in. They're about to move me somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Like you wasn't even supposed to have what you had.
Right.
Or to be perceived as, in some areas, and it's not all, but to perceive it as, they coming up a little bit, but I think it'll be more valuable to us. Because not all areas were deteriorating.
Right. Exactly.
Because most of our areas were close to town, uptown, downtown, depending on where you are. Those areas were close to town. So not necessarily that they're deteriorating, but you know what? We can do more with it. It's more valuable to us.
Right. That's right. And so that's where I was going with it, is that because we don't control the definitions that go on and go into Merriam-Webster and what have you, other folks are control the definitions. And just like in reading this definition, if you don't know anything about your history, you read this and you automatically get the impression like this is supposed to happen, that it's normal, that wherever people of color were living, it was destined to be, bad or what have you. So we're just going to come in and clean it all up. Hence, this is why we're having this conversation, because we want to make sure that we dispel these misnomers about our neighborhoods. So then, systemic racism, according to Merriam-Webster, the oppression of a racial group to the advantage of another, as perpetuated by inequity within interconnected systems, such as political, economic, and social systems. Also, policies and practices that exist throughout a whole society of organization, and that result in support a continued unfair advantage to some people and unfair or harmful treatment of others based on race. Now, really quick, after I read this, I decided to come up with a whole series. And so gentrification going to be the first part of this series, because I think I just want to spend some time, a couple of episodes, on just looking at systemic racism in multiple areas. I think it's important to have that conversation so that we can all really understand, it's systemic racism is alive and well, and it is present in the most minute areas. And Brian, I got a question for you because I'm sure you will remember, as do I, because I used to be a mortgage processor. And I remember when that mortgage application changed. And I want to say it was in 2002, 2003 when they revamped the entire mortgage application.
That's right. Yep. Okay.
But yeah, that's so don't let me forget. You can put a pin in. You'll put a pin in that. So anybody have any comments I want to add to these definitions or our understanding of systemic racism as it relates to gentrification? Because I promise you, we're gonna come back in future episodes and do a deeper dive in other areas.
Well, I would just like to add, if people are still confused about what systemic racism is, or how it actually works, you actually have to have a system to be able to exclude people from. So if you know that a group of people don't have a system to be able to exclude anybody from, then you know who is doing the systemic racism, because it's of a system. Okay, so if you own a line of banks or whatever the case may be, and you're not allowing somebody to get a job or funding or whatever, that's another form of systemic racism, because that group of people own those banks and they control it, and they can put whatever policies that they want to stay legally, away from everything else. But it's a system.
Right. Brandon, that was a mic drop moment right there. we just walk away now. You're exactly right. I like the way you put that.
Thank you.
Yep, that's perfect. So that being said,
hey, I did want to add something to that, Tisha. Going back to that systemic. I think the bigger glaring is the government interaction with this whole thing that we're talking about. Let's make sure we put that on Front Street, that gentrification cannot happen without the government having their piece in the whole pie. And so the system that we're talking about is the help in making all this happen, that I feel like we make sure that we're bringing attention to, because all this, starting from redlining to the white flight, to now we're in this area maybe of a town or a city that before gentrification happens, there is a help in hand to get that area infrastructure from time to time to even change before the speculation even happens. But it's all a system that I personally feel like the government is having a hand in this whole pot from the very beginning.
It's segregated by design. We can go back to the 1920s when the infrastructure for interstates evolved. Guess where they came through? The interstates in our communities.
Yep.
Segregated by design. It's actually a video that came out a few years ago. You can Google it. I think it's YouTube. And it talks, and it's a short video. It might be 20 minutes, but it talks about how the government had a hand in starting this whole thing we have now come to know as gentrification. They took away our public city services, and you wonder where the term ghetto comes from. It doesn't come from where we once lived.
Nope.
It doesn't. But until we are knowledgeable and educated on some of these things, we think it just evolved and it happened. But like Brian said, the government had a hand in it. Going back to, as he said, redlining and all these other things that they allowed and didn't allow. We didn't start this.
Absolutely. And to that city, well, one of those prominent cities that had the highway ran through the community. Well, before they ran it through the community, they actually bombed it first. Then it became a cemetery, and then they put a highway over it. So now people can't even visit their relatives, and that's Tulsa, Oklahoma, a, a very prominent area of gentrification. But that was done in a different manner.
So we actually have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Good evening, panel. Good evening, panel. Can you hear me?
Yes. You need to mute your computer, or else you're going to get that feedback.
Well, I'm on my phone, and I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay.
Oh.
But turn the volume down on your computer.
I'm not on my computer.
But we can hear your computer through the phone. See?
Okay. I'm not on my computer. It's not even on. However,
Okay.
The question I wanted to ask, and I'm hoping that this is a platform that you can answer this question. I would like to know how eminent domain and gentrification, how do those two equate each other?
That's a good question. Brian or Lakeisha, you want to take that?
I mean, absolutely. Because I guess let's go back to definitions, because maybe not everybody that is on the stream understands what that means. But first, if we're talking about eminent domain, that's where the government is going to deem that area, that property is now under government control, and that can happen in virtually any town, municipality where the government is. So I think there is a close relation to it, but I also think that the government using that with so much attention in today's world, eminent domain, as they are taking certain property for, let's say, a highway use, for example, you do have public opinion that does get wrapped into it, because there's especially if we're talking about large sums of property, where you're going to have the community that will be affected, that will probably have some say so in it.
Yeah.
But
so like in order,
relationship.
Yeah. So like it's an actual tactic that they use. So whenever we see that you know how you ride through a city, right? And you see that the maintenance hasn't been done throughout the city, right? That's sort of how eminent. I don't hear myself good. But that's sort of how eminent domain is used as an actual tactic. So like, it'll be through the symptoms of the state's own neglect. So with the crumbling infrastructure, that's not only that feedback is killing me. But let me take one of my earpieces out. But the
can you hear?
The crumbling infrastructure is just a pretense to displacing the communities or whatever, and that's not on the actual citizen. It's really on the state to be able to do that. So they use that actual symptom as a way to advance the gentrification. So they play hand in hand. Sorry if he was broken up. It was just that feedback. Man.
Well, so now my understanding, though, for eminent domain, so I think, and when you think about in terms of gentrification versus eminent domain, it is usually for infrastructure. So like you can have like my house right now. if the city of Indian Trail decided that they needed to put a tower in my backyard, then they would exercise eminent domain, and there would be nothing that I could do about it.
No.
Versus gentrification, you're wiping out entire communities. Let's say they wanted to, like I said, like in various cities they have built highways and took a highway straight through the houses. So what I've seen, like, and they've done it here in Indian Trail, they'll move houses back, and so they'll start eating into their land.
Yeah, like putting sidewalks in somebody's yard.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, that drives down the value, because now you put a tower, you better put a big old tower in my backyard. You drove down my property value. Because I'm not, nobody's going to want to, if I want to sell my house, nobody's going to want to buy my house with a big old tower in the back, sitting in the backyard. So that's I definitely can see how they can run hand in hand in terms of destroying our land and taking our land away from us. But yeah, that was an excellent an excellent question. But the one thing that unfortunately I think that puts people of color at a disadvantage is that we don't read and we don't investigate and find out certain things for ourselves. Because I can assure you, if the town of Indian Trail came to me and said that they was going to put a tower in my backyard, we getting ready to do a whole lot of research. And hence, that was one of the reasons why they wanted to make sure that we never learned how to read. Because everything, in my personal opinion, everything that is done to us is because of our lack of knowledge. They depend on our ignorance. Hence, that's why gentrification was so easy. Hence, this documentary that I have on the screen, Silver Dollar Road, was so easy for them to do what they did to this family. So again, I encourage everyone, if you have access to Amazon Prime, please take a look at this documentary. It was very well put together. I like that they really focused on the impact that all of this had on the family, and they focused on what was an extreme miscarriage of justice that happened to two family members in this story. And so if you haven't seen it, I don't want to give up too much information about it, but this story, I think this story happened in many families. So it wasn't just this one family. It just so happened that this is the one family that that someone actually wrote about. But this particular situation is not exclusive to this family. And so if you just go back, like I have on the screen, in 1866, after the Emancipation Proclamation, during the what's the era? The can't think of it now. I know somebody listening. It's the era, but just before Jim Crow started. I can't think of it now. It's escaping me. It was right after emancipation, after we were sort of set free.
Yeah, use that loosely. Use that loosely.
Just before it was restoration. It was the restorative eras. I think it's called the restoration. The restorative era. Something I can't think of it. But anyway, a lot of Black people got land. Some people actually did get the quote unquote so-called 40 acres and a mule just to have their just to be swindled right out of it. But in this particular family, this one man named Elijah Reels, he was able to purchase 65 acres of land. That sound like a little city, ain't it? A little town. That's a lot of land.
65 acres. Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. And unfortunately, then in 1939, he lost the land due to back taxes. And then in 1944, his son Mitchell, he was able to pay the back taxes and he got the land back. But then Mitchell died, and Mitchell died without a will. And because Mitchell died without a will, mind you, Mitchell had a lot of kids. And there might have been some siblings of Mitchell's in there. I don't remember seeing that in that little tree. But because Mitchell died without a will, that all that 65 acres became what is called heirs property. Now, I can tell you in our own family, there is some land that has been deemed heirs property. I nor Brian, we don't sit on that particular line, so we're not necessarily heirs.
We ain't high enough up. We're a little bit further down.
But it's, I mean, we close enough to know about it. But there's some heirs property, and not for nothing. I don't know how many people, how many people of color, and so I'm not just talking about Black people. This goes for American Indian, Hispanics, who knew that there were certain things that need to be done. And I say that because I remember I went down to Burgard County a couple of years ago and trying to find out about some parcels of land, who owned it, there were taxes that were on it, but most importantly, there's a parcel of land that has our family cemetery on it. One of those parcels was sold, but because the cemetery has never been surveyed, it does not appear on any land surveys. Now, I don't know how many of my family members actually know, but I've already discussed this with my mother and a couple of other ones. The problem with not having a cemetery sitting on a land survey means that if that land gets sold to someone outside of the family and there is no designation, the person who purchased that land does not have to recognize that cemetery, and if they want to bulldoze it, they can, and there is nothing no one can do about it. So for those of you who are listening and know, because we got family in multiple cities across the South that have lands, but you don't know. I said this to my mom a couple months. You don't know what you don't know until it's time to know it.
That's
and then it's too late.
That's right. Bad timing, man.
Huh?
Bad timing.
Right. Well, I mean, but again, you literally don't know what you don't know. Like when I went to Burgard, they had these books like this. I don't know if y'all can see. They had these books like this, of deeds. And the lady was telling me that people could just come in with a little piece of paper saying that they own this parcel of land, and they took that as to be the deed. And she said that's what's in those in these books. Because when I was looking for the actual deed for where the cemetery is, can't nobody find it. But I've seen it before because I found it before. But now they can't find it. But anyway, it's a whole nother conversation. But so this thing about heirs property is potentially, well, I'm not even gonna say potentially, it is a grave problem for families, because heirs property means you have multiple people who have rights to a parcel of land. And if all those people are not on the same page about that parcel of land, you got problems. And all it takes is for one who, let's say, doesn't want to go with what everybody else is doing to create a problem. And that's what happened with this family. There was the family member, his name was Shedrick. He lived in New Jersey. I believe, though they didn't say this in the documentary, I believe that their real estate developer, they found him, because they're gonna find who they need to find. I believe that they found him, they spoke to him, they told him, they showed him, where he was in place of this land. They said he came down, and some kind of way he got generated a fake deed, and 13 acres of land. The county down there, they deeded 13 acres of land to this family member, and he in turn turned around and he sold it to the real estate developer. But it's two family members who live on the land, have lived on the land all their life. So this area, why this was such a big deal, is because this particular area sits halfway between Outer Banks in North Carolina and Wilmington. It is prime waterfront real estate property. And if anybody's ever been to the Outer Banks, if you go to the Outer Banks, it is nothing but huge houses sitting right on the water. We know, because we went one year and we rented one of those houses. They're beautiful. And matter of fact, when you go to the Outer Banks, the Outer Banks is made up of several little towns, several little islands, and it looks completely commercialized. Like, it was completely commercialized. Like, I don't know if anybody else used to live there or what, but it's complete. The only thing that's still there that's probably original is the horses. So, but this real estate developer, they come in, they take this land, they want to take these two brothers land, and they was like, we're not going nowhere. And they had paperwork. They had a deed to show that they owned that land. But unfortunately, something happened. I don't want to tell y'all. I really need y'all to go to watch it. I'm really hoping that by now these two brothers have sued. But yeah, a grave miscarriage of justice. This slide just really talks about what heirs property is, and it's defined in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It says heirs property is property passed to family members by inheritance, usually without a will or estate planning strategy. It is typically created when land is passed on from someone who dies without a will to those legally entitled to their property, such as a spouse, children, or other relatives. However, if the title remains in the original owner's name, it is considered cloudy, negatively impacting the heirs. Land may pass through several generations without a will, increasing the number of heirs and causing complex legal issues. Heirs property can be mitigated through appropriate business entities and succession planning. Brian and Lakeisha, in your experience, have either of you encountered situations like this? Typically, I believe you would end up finding this out usually when the title searches are done.
Well, I actually have not had a heirs property situation, but do I know it exists? All day long, all day long. I think what, the charge I have as a realtor is to advise my clients after closing. You need to connect and put things in order, especially, whether it's single, you're a single person, or, you have kids, you're unmarried, et cetera, et cetera. Put something in place so that in the untimely event of, you passing, it's not going to the state. It's not, so that's the conversation I have, but I have not ran into heirs property. Not to say that I don't sell in those areas. It just has not happened yet. But am I aware of it? Yes. This same piece you're talking about, Silver Dollar Road, I was mentioning before the show, Soledad O'Brien did a piece, same situation, heirs property down in Bluffton, South Carolina, which is right outside of Hilton Head. So what we can safely say, y'all, is that this is happening up and down the Eastern Coast. The East Coast, I'm sure it's probably happening on the West Coast. I've heard of the same situation. What is it called? Manhattan Beach, I think, in California. Same kind of situation. That one was kind of taken by eminent domain, but it's happening every day. So I think the charge for us, when we know better, we do better, is what is said. We have to teach and we have to show the next generation, this generation, how to do it. We have to do our part and educate not only our family members, but those that we come in contact with.
Right. Brian?
Yeah, Tisha, I would say no, I haven't specifically had an heirs issue. Have I had issues with one, like you mentioned before? Title search is always done on a purchase transaction, especially when the lender's involved. And so can there be cloudy title issues that can take longer to research because of similar situations where properties passed down, there were no wills, people have passed away, maybe have children? That can get complicated. But for the most part, a lot of times those can be fixed. And so that's what I've seen. But I did want to kind of tie in what we're talking about. Keisha mentioned Hilton Head. We were just talking about the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The theme here is location. Like you can't beat location for anything when it comes to real estate values. And so going back to what Brandon said, as we can tell, there is a systematic beast at hand that is all about the location. And so when we're touching on Hilton Head and Bluffton, it's because that area now is valuable and I want it. So I'm going to use the system that is in place where I can track down one family member. And if I can get them to sign this document and I understand the system, now I've gotten one over.
Right.
And so I think that's the thing that you're probably going to see out of a lot of these situations is having that ignorance, not understanding, and somebody, it's all about money.
Oh, yeah.
Let's not get that also twisted, right? I mean, let's lay that foundation. This is about making a profit. So because the location is deemed to be very valuable by any means necessary, I'm going to use the system to now gain control over it. So now I can make a profit.
Well, let's say this, Brian. You said it's it's valuable. Guess what? It's valuable now. It wasn't valuable when they allowed them to buy it because they thought it was swamp land. They thought they was giving us leftovers. They thought they were giving us the non-producing parcels of land.
Absolutely. The redlining.
That was not the
Mhm.
case. You know, we were redlined. This was before redlining even came into place.
Right.
But they thought they were giving us the scraps, which only turned out to be valuable. So
That's
now is when and these families have been fighting these legal wars, as we saw in Silver Dollar Road, for decades, as we
Yes.
see in a lot of these other cases for decades.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Were you gonna say something, Brandon?
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say that's the reason why the 40 acres and a mule really wasn't an incentive.
Mm-mm,
Because they can give you any piece of
mm,
land and it may not be fertile, it may not be
right.
any
Mhm.
type of deemed
Mhm.
anything, but we make it something. We might not can't farm on it, but it's a beautiful piece of land that we've tilled and we've nurtured and we've taken care of, and now they want to come back and try to take it because they see the potential.
Uh,
So it's just, I mean, yeah.
at the end of the day, um, all of God's land was farmable. We knew what to do with it. Hence, that's why we was over here,
Yeah, we was in
and
certain
that's what
areas.
we have been doing. So then, when you gave us the land, you told it. They actually there's an act that was put in place, and it was said that take this land and go ahead and farm it and see what you can get out of it. They did not anticipate us being able to farm it and get nothing out of it.
Right.
But that's what you brought us over here for. So it was to me, it was like kind of stuck on stupid. We were going. It was inevitable that we were going that whatever you gave us, we was going to make something out of it because that's what we have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I came across this article. Oh my goodness. So I downloaded the article. It's 24 um pages long, but it also has diagrams and what have you in it. But excuse me, this article, I actually subscribe to it. And so here's the link. So anybody want to take a picture so you can uh go to the link. But this article is called Systemic Inequality, Displacement, Exclusion, and Segregation: How America's Housing System Undermines Wealth Building in Communities of Color. And the article actually starts off with the American Indians. But it says this report examines how government sponsored displacement, exclusion, and segregation have exacerbated racial inequality in the United States. It first looks at how public policies has systematically removed people of color from their homes. It then considers how federal, state, and local policies have fortified housing discrimination. The final section of the report proposes targeted solutions that would help make the U.S. housing system more equitable. I did not I didn't cover that part of the article. Like I said, I downloaded it and I will read it later. But for our conversation, I was able to put together somewhat of a timeline. So in 1830, so we were still slaves, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act into law, um, authorizing the federal government to forcibly relocate Native Americans in the Southeast in order to make room for white settlement.
Mm.
So yeah, they've been doing gentrification. That's 1830.
Hey, you got to put it out there, right? Like that's the epitome.
Mm-hmm.
Right. 1887, decades later, President Grover Cleveland signed into law the General Allotment Act, better known as the Dow's Act, that also impacted the American Indians. Now, there's in this same article, there's something with they called it. It was a kind of like how they made they coined the phrase the middle passage. I forget the term that they use in this article, but basically it was this migration from the southeast across the lower part of the United States, and the number of American Indians that died in that trek going across the lower part of the U.S. And it was seeing it today was the first time that I heard it. I hey, there goes something. I don't remember that being covered in history in school. Sorry. But I vaguely remember the Dow's Act, but I don't remember that very specific. This article specifically talks about what happened to them as they were drove across the lower states. So even out of I think they were going across Oklahoma and Texas, the whole Arizona, the whole lower part of the United States, and how many died, and all the land that they were on that they lost. In 1945 to 1968, they said federal laws terminated more than 100 tribal nations recognition and placed them under state jurisdiction, contributing to the loss of millions of additional acres of tribal land.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
So I believe, for me, the first event happened well before Andrew Jackson. I think it was the formation of the United States. It was people already here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And just to bring back, from the beginning where you was talking about the actual the word, the root word from it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they deemed us as undesirables. You know what I mean? So I think, to me, when I'm looking at this, it makes me think back, okay, well, that's still kind of like not all the way there. I would have thought that, they would have said just the formation in general of the United States was one of the first forms of
So remember, what's our podcast?
Unspoken conversation.
So look, hence we know that 1830 is just basically telling us what Andrew Jackson did in 1830. But we know that when they left the West Indies and all, and they came over into the continental U.S., there were Indians here, or Native Americans. Let me take that back. Let me correct myself. Native Americans were already here, and they took their land then.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So you are 100% right. It happened way before 1830.
And
for their legal purposes, they want to coin this act.
Well, they still mess up though. You look at the West Indies, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We know Indies is what? Indian, West Indian. So they just shorten it, West Indies, right? But then they come and say that the Indians are not us, it's somebody else that look like something else completely different, which is weird to me. And then they change the name and then make it Native American. And then they change it again to something I can't remember.
Indigenous.
Yes, indigenous people, but they keep removing the name that they messed around and gave us. You know what I mean? It's not nothing that we called ourselves, but that's what they classified us as. Even when Columbus came over here, he thought he was in a different place. That's the reason why he said Indian. But then we have the West Indies where he was at 1st. Mm-hmm. But what do they look like? Me or darker? So it just, oh man,
well, I honestly, in my opinion, I feel like indigenous people is about as good as it's going to get, because technically they should not be called Indians.
Nope.
Period. And I think there's a whole lot of we all already know there's multiple levels of falsehoods in this so-called history that they that they tell. But just really quick, just for geographical purposes, if Columbus was going to India, Columbus went backwards. He would have been going backwards. He went the other way.
Mm-hmm. He didn't know how to
Because
say.
India technically would have been behind him. He should have went across land instead of water. And if he was going to go water, he would have went south, down, under, over, past Africa, back up. So technically, somebody's lying. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody's lying about where he was going.
He wasn't as
Huh?
great as a navigator that he thought he was. And they actually said that. They actually said that he wasn't. That he was pretty
He
much
really
a
wasn't.
castaway. You know what I mean?
He really
thought
wasn't.
he-
And how do you prove that? I mean, they knew that the world wasn't wasn't flat. That's foolishness. I'm telling you, the stuff that they have told us in history.
Mhm.
And it's funny because my granddaughter just said, she said, BB, they teaching the revolutionary. She said they teaching the Revolutionary War, and I don't really understand what they're saying. I said, baby, we'll talk about it later.
Mhm.
But she is 9. No, yeah, she's 9. She was like, I don't really understand what they're saying. I was so proud. But anyway, I digress. I'm hoping Brian is going to be able to jump back on. I don't know what happened, unless he actually had to leave at right at 7. So I do apologize for going over. But we get caught up in these conversations. But in 1850, so bringing it to the north, New York City lawmakers used eminent domain, which was what our caller asked earlier, to destroy a thriving, predominantly Black community in Manhattan, displacing thousands of residents in order to create the public space known today as Central Park. Did y'all know that?
I did.
I didn't.
Yeah. I used to
You say
watch
you did? Uh-huh.
yeah, I used to watch Hidden Colors. I saw 1, 2,
Mm.
3, and 4, and they were speaking about that or whatever
I
in the
didn't know
history
that.
of us. Oh yeah.
Mm. Between 1970 and 2015, Black residents declined from 71% of the population in Washington, D.C. to just 48%. Washington, D.C. used to be known as Chocolate City.
Yep.
It is not known as that anymore.
I was there for part of the gentrification, like being
Mhm.
wowed by some of the residents. I used to, well, when I stayed in Virginia, I did Lyft part time for, but I would drive from Fredericksburg, Virginia to DC
Mhm.
and do it. And just to hear people's stories, it was sad, having people,
Mhm.
they're staying in apartments. They have a 4-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom apartment. They're paying their rent or whatever. Somebody else goes to buy it. They say, hey, we're going to put you in a hotel until the renovations are done. They come back, they have 1 less bedroom or 2 less bedrooms. Now their family can't fit, and then the price goes up, and now they can't afford the rent. And it just
Mhm.
wasn't for us, it was for every single person that was there. So just imagine somebody that was on retirement that can't afford for their rent to be higher than what it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they've been living there for forever. So that's when I started paying attention to gentrification back then, because
Mhm.
it was bad. It was bad in DC. Because I was like, man, ain't nobody got nowhere to go. It's just a whole lot of stuff out here in DC to do. And one of my passions was like, man, you don't know about what's going on. I was like, nah. And it's elderly people. That's what really, really, really bothered me.
So again, these graphs are all in that article. This one has to do with the home ownership rates by ethnicity in in the United States, and this, I don't know if, I hope it's larger on your side, but this line right here represents our lighter skinned cousins, and then this line down here represents our darker skinned cousins. And so, I mean, this really didn't come as no surprise. It's been like that like forever. And this takes me to what I wanted to ask Brian about. So I used to work for HSBC Mortgage, and I want to say it was 2002 to 2002 2003. The mortgage application changed, and I started noticing this very specific box on it that it was there to identify if you were Hispanic or of Hispanic origin, or non-Hispanic and something else. That up until 2002, 2003, that was not on the application. So that for me, that's happening. That's like fairly. There he goes. Here he was. Let me get him in there.
Man, the devil's a liar.
Yes, he is.
Good
We ain't having it.
I apologize.
I'm so glad you came back. We were just talking about. I was just getting ready to talk about the mortgage application and how it changed back in like I said, I think it was like 2002, 2003, where that section, they came up with a section that was specifically geared to Hispanics. Now, look, at the end of the day, I'm all for everybody owning a home. I don't have an issue with that. But I can tell you, at the time, I worked for HSBC Mortgage, and during that time, I'm sure it's on a much grander scale, but I can only speak to the financial institution that I was working at. They were developing mortgage programs specific to people who are Hispanic or Hispanic origin. You remember that?
I see. We didn't not to that extent. Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that at all. Where it would be specific.
Yeah, it was. So that was like when it first started. I know HSBC did that because if an application came over and that section was blank, it had to be sent back, because it had to be, that information had to be provided. And then, like I said, there were specific programs that were created seemingly to ensure that that demographic were able to purchase. But the thing about it is, we saying about people of color, if you allow that particular demographic to purchase, but you still decline the other demographic. So in essence, it's you still, they may not get as much as they would get if they were of their lighter skinned cousins, but you further pushed back or pushed out of the running Black people, because those programs were specific just for people who were Hispanic or Hispanic origin that I know of. And I've been in banking well over going close to 30 years. I don't know of any programs that were ever specifically created for Black people, African Americans.
And now we got to be careful when they say minority, because they're including the YT woman as the minority. So it's not necessarily even for us. So, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Despite the change in the application where it was asked or not asked, the boxes, if we take that part out of the equation, home ownership for Black owners or Black buyers has been unchanged for over 50 years. So we have a bigger problem than this application. Now, are we saying that's another layer of systemic racism? Yes, we are saying that. But if we take that away and they never asked, we still have a problem because home ownership for Blacks, for African Americans, for us has not, it's been unchanged. It's been unchanged. So we have a bigger problem here that we need to address. And it's so many layers, so many layers.
Right. And to your point, it's like when because when you make the argument, you'll make the argument, you'll make the argument for people of color. But you really technically can't really make the argument for people of color because you know how to separate, you know how to break up that group. And so it's like, okay, if I allow Asians and Hispanics or Indian or what have you, if I allow them to get ahead, then we don't have the argument, right, that you're holding back people of color.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, but no, we still allow, it's like the diversity argument.
That's why we got to get away from saying people of color. We have to just call it exactly what it is.
Yeah, we're not.
We're right, Black people.
We're talking about it.
So
and the bigger problem, like you all have said, is systemic. It's systemic. It's when we think about the neighborhoods that are being gentrified, where they're having to move and not able to, even before they move from those neighborhoods, it was still a layer of systemic racism. Because why is it that just in our older communities, the Black community I grew up in, nobody was able to keep up their house? Nobody was able to, put a new roof on. Nobody was able to, those are still conversations that we not necessarily hadn't had, but again, it's a bigger problem than that. How do we keep, I have an aunt who is on a gentrified street in a gentrified neighborhood, a gentrified section of Charlotte, 28208 if you are from the city. How do I, as best I can, keep having these conversations with her that, Auntie, when you gone, your kids have to know how to pay taxes. They got to know how to keep the insurance on the house. They got to know how to keep repairs up. Because if not, every house from the corner to her house is a McMansion now. And she's still in her Habitat home that'll be paid off in a few years, her and the next door neighbor. So when you leave a house that's paid for, no mortgage, what's the conversation we having with those that are left? Just like on Silver Dollar, the question is, the grandson, I'm the only one that's willing to fight right now. Who's left to fight?
Right.
So it will continue. We got it's a ground level grassroots type of, push. I don't like to use the word fight, but
and now is so that Zuko that's Betty's Ford Road, right? That's the area.
But 208 is big, but yeah, that's in the area. It's in the area.
So, because I remember, we did outreach over in that area, and so this is my first time seeing it in this magnitude. So there was a house. When I tell you the house, so it was an occupied house, but the house looked like it looked like it was leaning, ready to fall over.
It probably was.
Yep. Deferred maintenance.
Right next door was a beautiful yes. And then on the other side of the house, another house, the other house was leaning to the other way,
right.
the other direction.
So we have some issues here because of that.
And so right, that does, but does that one that well, maybe not just that one house, because I think there was another one, but just to say that one house, because of its size and all of its now amenities and what have you, but still sitting on the same little plot of land. Because it wasn't like they gained more land, they just whatever was there, they caused those two houses taxes to go up.
Right.
That's it. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're going back to the
so then here's
systemic part of it.
Here's the charge, and I tell this to all my real estate students. You have to take the charge to help those that are 65 and older how to get that tax break, because that's what I had to do for my aunt.
Okay.
I had to go down to the county building, fill out the paperwork. Hey, she's over 65. Now she retired on a fixed income. We need these taxes reduced because everybody from the corner to the next door neighbor, that's not her tax value. That's their tax value because they chose to build a $600,000 or $700,000 house. That's not her case. So I did all the paperwork, took everything down, got it submitted, and hence she got the tax reduction. She got the tax reduction. But that's all of our job. That's everybody's job.
So let me ask you this: Is that something that comes up for a vote by the county or the city? Like,
is the tax break already there? It's already there, but do we know about it?
Right, but so I think let me ask the question differently. Is it in jeopardy of being taken out of the budget ever? No. Like, are there any laws, regulations, or what have you in place that will threaten to take that away, so that, let's say, our seniors don't have it? Because then the other charge becomes, right, that we have to make sure that when it's time to vote on certain things, that you're voting to make sure that those little, may not be a lot, but those little things remain in place, because they always looking for a way to wipe something out of a budget.
So is that 65 because of the retirement age?
It is.
Well, it's in jeopardy. It's literally in jeopardy right now.
So
for our next
Kimberly
presidential,
just said you have to be in a particular budget to receive that reduction as a senior.
Well,
no budget. Well, you do have an income limit. That is right. That was part of the paperwork I had to complete for her. I had to say, hey, this is her income, blah, 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 blah. I don't even remember it. I just knew she qualified, and she had no clue. Is it to say it's in jeopardy? It very well could be. That is not really the argument at this point.
Wasn't it? Didn't it used to be called the STAR program or something like that?
Not that I'm aware of. It's in the counties. It's basically a county allowance for seniors over 65. But how many people know about it?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I only say that because we do have an election coming up, and one of the candidates is talking about increasing the retirement age. That's the reason why I asked, is it based on the retirement age, because they want to push it to 70, because they feel like the life expectancy rate is higher now. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, then.
But then we got that's a whole nother conversation then, because when we talk about, living longer, that's stretching our dollars even further. And is that really realistic? No, when we already making less than everybody else anyway.
I mean, and then we have the corporations that are backed by private equity groups, you know what I mean, that's buying tens and thousands of homes across the, United States, which is also driving the cost of living up. And so I thought I'd never see a $700,000 house that's about the size of an apartment. I would have never thought I'd see that.
Oh, I could have showed you that in New York.
Yeah, I mean, but that's
supply and demand, though. That's
the
economics of supply and demand.
But then even when people tell me that, right, like I used to drive trucks, right? So I was a flatbed driver. So I dealt with a whole bunch of the material that's going to have to be built for the house. Almost every piece of material outside of nuts and bolts. All right. So the shingles, the drywall, the sheetrock, all of that. They got to telling us, oh, well, because of the housing market is low right now, they got to charge more for these houses. I'm like, okay, so that means do I get a little bit more on my check? Because what I'm hauling is more expensive. So if a person goes into Lowe's and wants to buy some sheetrock, they're not going to spend the same price. So why am I getting the same price as my pay? You get what I'm saying? So
Oh
when
yeah,
they
you
when
got
they when I
squeezed out, baby.
yeah, so when they tell me it's about the supply and demand, I get it. You know what I mean? But it's still not falling the way it should. You know, just like the cost of living, the average wage of an American. Now you have people who are making $100,000 a year struggling and living paycheck to paycheck, and that shouldn't be anywhere near, you know what I mean, what the outcome is right now or the reality right now.
Right.
You know, I don't know. Man, it's so like this
Spoken
gentrification,
But
like it's so
but when
complex.
when you talk, because I think we had a conversation about your the wage and what have you. So we go back to we'll just talk about rental property. So matter of fact, in my community, which is a brand new community, I don't know. We've already had some hedge fund companies come in and purchase some of these houses.
Mhm.
The house up the street from me, to rent it is $23.50.
It's ridiculous.
It's a 4-bedroom house. Now, guess what? Somebody gonna end up renting that house.
Yep.
They have to.
And yeah, so I mean I know all of us took economics and what have you. It really technically is not matching up, but it has nothing really to do with your salary. It has nothing to do. It really doesn't have anything to do with your wage. I remember asking someone who she has rental property, and I remember asking her this question. This was before the pandemic, and she was getting ready to purchase a fourplex. And I said to her, you purchase a fourplex, you charge let's just say, you know, just random number, you charge $1,000 rent for each. But let's say two streets over, you have another homeowner who also owns a fourplex, and they charge $2,000 per unit. Now, because you are who you are, so okay, she's a believer. Because you are who you are, you know that technically, I mean, because the whatever you charge it is sufficient enough for her to still pay the mortgage on the property, get somewhat of a profit, but it's an affordable rental rate. But because but because the people, the other owners around you, their rents are a little bit higher. Do you bring yours up so that you stay where they are? And she told me yes, and I was like, why?
That's part of the problem. Some
That's
people want,
exact. So
you
it
know,
was at that
it's
moment
that.
that I learned that people, consumers, drive
the price.
the rates of stuff. It's not necessarily, it's not the owners, it's us. Because like you just said, somebody gonna pay rent $23.50. So why would they not charge it?
Our
And that's business.
largest or highest rental that we manage right now is $3,300 a month. That means they make three times the rent. 3,300 is the highest, the largest. 3,300, and guess what? It's higher rents in Charlotte. But again, we're just establishing the fact that we got a lot of work to do. We got, and not just
So let me ask you this question. What prevents the owner of that property from bringing that rate down?
Well, it was the rental comps in the area. That's what the rent is going for in the area. That's all.
Yeah, but let's think about it again. This is from a business standpoint.
It is. It's strictly business.
Who is anybody outside? Because I think we got to separate out the business part of this from gentrification. Because now we're getting into, yes, it is whoever owns the property. Who am I to say what they should charge in rent? And so if they're following business 101 and I own this property, and yes, I'm charging this X $1,000 a month, but there are similar comps that are right behind my unit that are renting for $2,000 a month. Now, if I wanted in the goodness of my heart to still rent this property to X person for $1,000, that is my right. And maybe that's the decision that I make.
Catch more flies with sugar.
Yeah, but then
just think about how many people, thinking about how much money people could really be making in this economy if they were actually able to afford a place to live.
But that's the thing.
So
they can still rent it for that.
The demand is not there because although people feel as if they can afford that rent, they really can't afford that rent.
No, but we got to separate out the people are still paying it. It might not be the people that look similar to that area.
Right. Now, in this case, the person that's paying $3,300 a month don't look like me.
That's my point. We're talking supply and demand. There's not enough housing in certain areas, and therefore people are making business decisions.
After a while, it's going to be a whole bunch of $3,300 because everybody wants to do. Oh well, just because they're doing it over here, I can do it too, and somebody gonna pay it, and then I'm good. See, like that mentality of that is what's killing the economy.
Because but the market will tell. The market will tell you.
But ultimately, what it all boils down to is greed. Exactly. Because in all actuality, to what you just said, you have the right. You as a homeowner, you have the right to charge whatever that you want to charge, and just so that you make sure that you get your piece of the pie, you gonna charge at least the same thing that the next homeowner is charging, or a little bit more, because you're not gonna be cut out. But guess what? At the end of the day, technically, there is always enough for everybody. There's always been enough for everybody, but because of man's greed, is why you have a housing crisis. Is why you have people who can't afford to eat. They can't afford to go to the doctor. They can't afford to do nothing because of man's greed. And that's what gentrification is man being greedy, taking land from other people, right, who was living there all their lives, because you want to make your money. You're willing to displace people.
Right.
Now, so it basically boils down to
$3,300. Let me just say, in the defense of the equation, was not in the gentrified area. It is not anywhere where most of us live. Stating the facts to that, $3,300 in rent when people can't afford $1,000 rent is real, because I see it every day. When I say the cheapest rent I have is 30 miles outside of the county, and it's probably right at $900, but it's hard to come by $900 in the city. So what's happening when people are displaced because of gentrification? They are having to move out further. They are 20 and 25 miles out. Kids can't go to the same school. You can't take public transportation now. So we got all these other layers to the problems that gentrification gives us, because now they're displaced.
And that's the reason why, that's the reason why I was saying about the corporations, that are backed by these private equity places. That corporation is out to make money. And in the year 2030, they're going to be owning almost more than 40% of the houses in the United States.
Well, we don't act right now. They're not too far. 33%. That's a lot.
And that's what I'm saying. So, it's gonna come to a point. People just gonna stop. And when people stop,
people gonna be on the street. People are literally going to be sleeping in the streets. And
we can't ask those same people to get up and go to work.
Sleeping in the streets like that, right? they're gonna start beating your door down trying to get into your house. The
Mhm.
problem, this is a piece of the problem, but it's growing, and it's unfortunate that those who have money, who have all the power, do not understand what they're creating. And unfortunately, they seem to be under the oppression that you sitting up on this top of this mountain, and then ain't gonna be able to touch you. But when people get desperate
They will.
and they need some place to keep their baby warm, oh, they coming up there to the mountain, right? And they coming in your house.
And I think they
Right.
realize it too. That's why they starting to build bunkers now. So
Oh,
yeah.
well, look, you can go underground if you want to. But I end with gentrification is racial segregation. Wait, racial segregation is the direct result of intentional government policy, not individual choice.
No,
More than 50 years after the Fair Housing Act passage, most American communities remain segregated by race. 66 existing residential patterns are largely not the result of personal preference among people of color to live in ethnic enclaves, but rather centuries of policies enacted by lawmakers on every level. Racial segregation has contributed to persistent disparities in access to public goods such as parks, hospitals, street lights, and well-maintained roads, and has undermined wealth building in communities of color nationwide. I implore you all to go check out this article, because they do offer some remedies towards the end of the article. But this paragraph right here is really what convinced me that I want to look at systemic racism on um, multiple levels. So like one being, I don't know when exactly the phrase got coined, but now we coined this phrase, food deserts, which again is another form of systemic racism. So it's like it's all these little things happening, and I don't know if in the circles that I move in, we're not necessarily oblivious to what's happening, but so many other people are not realizing, right, that like Brandon said in the beginning, you have a system that is consciously every single day devising ways to keep you disenfranchised and not progressing. And we need to wake up. That's another podcast. What it means to be woke. No, but we need to wake up, and we need to continue to have these conversations where we are educating each other about what's happening. I don't look. No one person has the answer, but we should not discount ourselves into thinking that hey, I'm just one person, and there is I don't have no part. I can't do it by myself. I don't know who's going to listen to this podcast today, tomorrow, a week from now. I don't know how many other people are having these conversations, but these are necessary conversations that need to be had. And I am of the belief that somebody with a little bit more influence than I will hear these conversations, right, and will want to partner with either me, Brian, Brandon, Lakeisha, or just all of us together in being able to affect change. That ultimately that is my hope. My goal right now in life is I'm trying to leave a legacy, and it got to be more than just I was just here. I want to be able, I want my grandkids to be able to stand up for something, and understand the importance. And like Like my aunt said, the discussion needs to start with the families to help their elders. We can't leave it up to outside sources or the government to educate them on different matters. Absolutely. Hence this, like I said, this is why I started this platform. Um, Another viewer said there are Jews that are now going around offering homeowners money to purchase their homes in low income areas, fix them up, rent them out for a huge amount per month. The average individual cannot afford the rent. With that being said, there will only be a certain class of people that will be able to afford them. Right. And so guess what? We better wake up, for we all be sitting out in the woods somewhere, sleeping under tents. Because at the rate that they go, that's where we gonna be at.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, she
there's
just gave it.
the middle class is
Huh?
is about to be no longer existing. It's
We said
only
the
going to
middle.
be, yeah, it's only going to be either the upper class or the lower class. They're slowly eating away, at a group of people that was doing quite okay, quite fine, actually pushing the nation a little bit further without having to take all the tax breaks. But there's neither here nor there. But still, man, I mean, who would have thought that
Kimberly,
gentrification was?
I mean, Kimberly's giving a great example of a systematic, right? That's a great example of a strategy that somebody is using, and it is the epitome of the gentrification. It's just a one way that it happens. But like my mother has said, like, Tisha, for us to have the conversation here, I mean, this is a start. It's grassroots to even have the conversation. At least is now educating the people that may see this, and now go back, each one teach one, see something, say something.
Right.
Going back to the conversation that we had about, when people get to a certain age and maybe their income level, right, is at a certain level where they can go to the county and ask for the taxes to be reassessed lower. There might be 5 or 6 people that didn't even know that, but because of this podcast, it changes the course of somebody's life. So I mean, we are doing something about it by at least having the conversation.
Right.
But we also acknowledge that this is much bigger. It is much deeper than just property values and somebody making money. This definitely has some underlining concerns for our Black and brown community. And low to moderate income people also, different perspectives.
I said, discuss the solution. The problem is, she said, discuss the solution. The problem is already here. We know that society is living is not in our favor. Start at home with yourself and your children. Absolutely. Like you just said, Brian, it has to be each one teach one. And to your point too about the I purposely asked the question, so I don't know. I will be honest and say I don't know what things on a county level, like taxes and things like that, because I know just like in Mecklenburg County, I know they just did a reassessment, property reassessment, and I know a whole lot of people whose their property taxes went up a lot. And so, but I don't know how that's regulated. I don't know. I don't know what goes into those determinations. I can say I'm not getting ready to go back to school to learn how they do that either.
They assess it based on the sales in the area. That's how they come about it. So there is a law, there's an act in place that says every 8 years in the state of North Carolina, every 8 years, the county has to bring the assessed value in line with the market value. So this was our 8th year. Now, what can happen, what has happened, you have market growth like we saw. But what has happened in years past with years, before, when the market tanked. So when they reassessed, they had to reduce because we had so many foreclosures. So remember, this thing with taxes and or real estate is a cycle. It's a cycle. So unfortunately, we were on the wrong end, but it was because of what these corporate buyers did to our market. This did not happen with the first time home buyer. This did not happen with the move up buyer. This happened with corporate buyers. So what they did was not necessarily inflated, but in some realities, they did inflate it by paying more than list price. My last,
they wanted it.
before the market finally cooled off, my last listing got 17 offers. Out of the 17 offers, about 7 or 8 of them were from owner occupants, people who wanted to live there. The highest offer we got from them was 30,000 over list price. Where you think they came from? They probably did not come from Charlotte. And the other balance of those offers were corporate buyers. Do you want to know what they end up offering? And my seller took it. $45,000 over list price.
Wow.
And my seller
and to that also, was it that now list price has nothing to do with actual appraised value? So is this now is that how much more above the appraised value?
Well, here it is. That list price was based on the recent comps in the community, which for better lack of explaining it to everybody, we can say that other houses in the neighborhood sold for that. We're comparing what is the other houses in the neighborhood to that house. But for the corporate buyer to come and offer $45,000 more than that, and you just smash 8 other owner occupants who wanted to live there, that was the problem. Hence, we're building. That's how the tax values shot up. So when we talk about these corporate buyers buying 33% of the inventory, which is what it was overall, 33% of the inventory, of course the tax is going up. But the law that's in place says you bring the tax value in line with market value every 8 years. Now they're looking at doing it every 4 years so that this jump won't be so big because of what we recently experienced. So time will tell. Yeah.
Well, folks, look, I learned a lot. And I still got more questions. But Lakeisha and Brian, I appreciate you both so much. The wealth of knowledge that you both have brought to the table, and really helping our viewers understand why this particular conversation is essential to our communities. You may not be homeowners now, landowners now. But I'm sure I'm believing that at some point you may be, or some other person in your family. And this is information that we need to know. Going back to the family on Silver Dollar Road, I assure you, if Elijah Reels would have known what we know right now, that real estate developer would not have been able to get that land. There would not have been no heirs property, because he would have willed his that land to very specific individuals. And so like the Bible says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And so our goal is always to educate. And so my panel today, y'all have done just that. I appreciate you so much. And I do apologize for the extended time, but yeah, when you control your own platform, you control your own clock. So I didn't have to worry about nobody shutting me off. But no, I do value everyone who has stayed on and contributed to the conversation. My Aunt Lou and Kimberly, thank you very much. The next our next episode, so brace yourselves. The next episode will be February 18th. And again, in honor of Black History Month, the title for that podcast is Who is Willie Lynch? So
Okay.
yeah, it's necessary to have this conversation now. But with that being said, it will be on the 18th, same time, 6 p.m., broadcasting on both Facebook and YouTube. And for those of you who have not liked and shared and subscribed to either the Facebook channel or the YouTube channel, I implore that you do so now. Share with your friends. If you know anybody who needs this information, please, please, please share it with them. We do check the chat, the conversation board to see if we have any comments or questions that occur after we've gone off the air. So please feel free to still comment and encourage anybody else that you share this information with, that they can comment, and we promise to respond back. Brandon, got any closing remarks? Good night, my aunt. I love you.
Nah, I don't have none. I mean, I enjoyed the conversation and I learned a lot myself.
Awesome.
I don't know, it just feel good. Feel like a good discussion.
Wonderful. Keisha and Brian, any closing remarks?
No,
Great
I feel again
conversation.
honored. Thank you.
Yes, it was an honor to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. And
I'm so happy your voice held up.
It held up. It's a struggle, but it's there. Just
I so appreciate you.
No, my mama said, "Sorry, I missed it." It's okay, mama.
Look, just
she
just
peeked in though.
But
you can hit, you can hit the replay.
Huh?
I can't see Brian's face. The caption is over his face.
Oh, which caption? Oh, let me see. Let me stop sharing.
Nope. It's still there, but I can see him now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about. The comment.
The comment. That's what I meant to say. The comment.
There you go. There you go. Now, really quick, Brian is a he has recently embarked on public speaking. He is a motivational speaker now. Oh, excited. All right. Yes, you must go and check him out on Facebook. He is element.
I appreciate that too. Hey man, just trying to get that positive energy.
Huh?
Just trying to give positive energy. You know, I feel like that's what the world needs. Fun. Hey, I am. It's like living in your truth. How about that? You know, when you living in your truth, you know, it feels good. It feels natural. And it's having change. It's inspiring, it's motivating. And hearing something like that coming from you, Tisha, that warms my heart. That just knows I'm headed in the right direction.
I'm so proud of you. But now look, Lakeisha can tell you too, because she's well, you heard it, she's a trainer and what have you, and yeah, she about it. I love listening to her. First of all, I love listening to anybody who knows how to articulate themselves well. I'm really particular about that, and so
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes,
you know she's talking about you.
But yeah, she's I consider her a motivational speaker as well. I mean, every time I speak to her, she dropping some nuggets, some golden nuggets, and so I appreciate it. So again, everyone, if you missed it, you can always go back and watch the playback. And again, you can comment. We will comment to you, respond to you, and again, come back this way next Sunday, February 18th, at 6 p.m., where we will be discussing who is Willie Lynch. So y'all have homework. Go look it up.
I'm about her some feelings, Nick. Ooh.
Go
They're gonna be
look,
mad at me.
go look it up. And we got some powerhouses that are going to join us in this conversation. My suggestion is to get pen and paper. Because y'all getting ready to get education that you are not going to get in nobody's public school system.
Right, because I'm probably should have saved my non-reading glasses for that right there, because that's a lot of education they're gonna get. Because I don't need them. They just,
You are hilarious. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Y'all
you.
have an amazing evening. Unspoken conversations. Your words have power. Our goal is to educate and inspire positive action that will motivate change and understanding. Thank you for joining us.